Hi, welcome to the channel and welcome to another video about the coronavirus. Today I want to talk about a report that was released by a team of Chinese scientists and researchers. They work at hospitals and medical schools. The study, to me, in my mind, is a game changer. And I think it's going to have huge consequences around the world, but I'll get to that a little bit later. First of all, I just want to give you the key facts of the research, and then we can go on. I'll talk about some of my opinions. So the study was conducted on just over 1,000 patients from 552 different hospitals in 31 different provinces between the 1st and the 29th of January. It was led by Zhongnan Shan, and he's a leading Chinese epidemiologist. So the major finding of this study was that the incubation period can be up to 24 days, which is in contradiction to what was initially thought of 14 days. And I'll get on to my thoughts on that later, but I think that is an absolute major game changer in this situation. Of the patients that were included in the study, a third of them, or around a third of them, had actually been to Wuhan, and a further 71.8% had been in contact with someone from Wuhan. Again, this sort of underlines this, the finding that it does have person-to-person contact. Only 1.18% of the total patients in the study had been in direct contact with any wildlife. So that, as I said, the first fact is that the incubation period can be 24 days. I really do find that quite alarming. Fever only initially occurred in 43.8% of patients. However, once those patients had developed more symptoms and been hospitalized, that percentage went up to 87.9%. The absence of a fever in the early stages of this nCoV virus is less than what was reported or monitored in both SARS and MERS. So the problem that this caused is initially patients were only given the nucleic acid test after a CT scan had been performed, and if that CT scan showed viral infection in the chest or in the lungs, the test was done and people were then either confirmed to have nCoV or not. So what the study has concluded is that relying on the CT scan is just not enough evidence of whether a patient has the virus or not. And I think it seems as that the only way at the moment to confirm 100% is to do the test. But even that, there's been some negative results coming back from those tests as well. So even the tests are not 100% at the moment, and it seems that sometimes they're having to do 2 tests to actually get a definite confirmation. The researchers also said that from the study they can't preclude people who may be super carriers, super spreaders. Super spreaders are people who can spread the virus to far more other people than a normal patient would. This has been witnessed in a case of a British man that travelled to Singapore. He attended the business meeting in Singapore, and since he left that meeting, he's infected approximately 10 others, 4 in France, where he stayed in a chalet with them at a ski resort, and a further man that was in that ski resort who then returned to Spain, and also another 3 or 4 people back in the UK when he returned to the UK. to actually in the medical centre that he went to when he got some symptoms. He went to a medical centre, and it seems 2 people in that medical centre have now been confirmed to also be having nCoV. So the study also found that 4 out of 62 stool samples from patients were found to contain the virus, and an additional 4 patients are also found to have virus in their gastrointestinal tract, saliva or urine. So the virus can spread through diarrhea and saliva and potentially vomit and urine too. The study also showed how much of a threat medical workers were under when they are treating patients. Of the 1,099 patients in the study, 23, which was 2.09%, were medical workers and obviously had become infected from dealing with patients who had the virus in the first place. So that's all the facts of the study, and obviously I think this is the first sort of larger study that's been made, and I'm sure in the coming weeks there will be increasing amounts of study with even more data to get more of an understanding of the virus. The researchers suggested there's still a lot they don't know about the virus, so obviously studies will continue. But I just want to sort of give you my perspective on this now. The incubation period, which was first thought to be 14 days, has now moved to 24. And I think also alarmingly, this lack of fever initially in more than around half of the patients, I think is really quite alarming, because I really have no idea how you can quarantine people for such lengths of time. Yeah, it's easy if you have sort of 6 or 8 people and you can quarantine them for almost a month. But I think to try to quarantine major cities and even countries for that length of time is pretty much impossible. So a reporter was reading yesterday, now a few days ago, I think it was on Saturday night, Hong Kong implemented a 14-day quarantine period for people crossing the border from mainland China into Hong Kong. Now, I'm not sure about foreigners who have nowhere to stay in Hong Kong, but from a point of view of Hong Kongers who were returning across the border, the quarantine is actually a self-quarantine. And up to yesterday, they had slightly over 1,000 people who were subject to that self-quarantine. Now, obviously, the authorities don't have the capability to check on all of those 1,000 people 24 hours a day. So the authorities there have been carrying out spot checks, and out of about 160 spot checks they did yesterday, they found 2 of the people were not actually in their homes. They'd actually gone out, and then others that they questioned when interviewing them for a spot check says, oh yeah, we popped out to buy some grocery, or we popped out to run an errand. So obviously this is sort of something where a quarantine is not going to work unless you physically force people to stay inside. It's just not going to work. And this has also been the case in the UK. Yesterday the UK passed some new laws because one of the people, or maybe more than one of the people, but certainly one of the people that was quarantined, that was evacuated from Wuhan here in China, wanted to leave, and the current powers that the UK government had didn't allow them to stop him leaving if he wanted to. So they rushed through some new laws and regulations to allow that to so that they could force him to stop in the quarantine. So, but the wider picture of the wider implication of this report is that even if these countries do quarantine these people for 14 days, it's really possibly of no use if there are people up to 24 days that are found to have the virus, because after that 14 days they can be let out of quarantine. They can still have the virus and be spreading that virus. really not good. And as far as checking temperatures, I think that also has little use too. Interestingly, the WHO are still suggesting to quarantine large numbers of people or large areas, whereas more and more experts are now suggesting this is absolutely not of any use at all in the fight against this. It's now become evident that the virus can stay active on surfaces for a much longer length of time than was first thought, up to 8 or 9 days. So again, this is another major thing that, and I think you've seen a instance of this on the cruise ship that's the port in Japan quarantine. They've only tested around 300 or 400 people, but there is already over 100 confirmed cases. Japanese authorities are actually saying they're going to struggle to test all the people on board that ship. I'm not sure why that is. So that moves me on to, if we can't quarantine this, how do we deal with it? Because unless we quarantine pretty much the whole of the world for months on end, we're not going to be able to stop the spread of this disease. So personally, I think we've got to much more quickly accelerate the research on treatment of this, so we're able to treat more people more effectively. And secondly, I think we need to more rapidly move towards getting a vaccine found and approved. Now, I know the normal time for a vaccine could be as much as 1 year, but I'm sure with all the technology we have now around the world, I'm sure this could be spread up, because I think it's going to become apparent that huge amount of people around the world will get this virus. We don't have any accurate figures on the death rates of this. Currently, the information is suggesting it's much more serious in older people and older people with underlying illnesses, and it's much less severe in children and younger fit people. So also something else that there might be many carriers of this who just get what is like a normal sort of cold symptoms, and they may not even go to seek medical advice, thinking it's just a sort of normal cold, and these actually could be people that have the virus too, and spreading it to other people. So I really think there's a massive challenge worldwide here to now deal with this outbreak. So it'd be very useful to hear what your comments and thoughts are about this, so please comment in the comments section below. That brings me to the end of this video. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you like the content on our channel, which right at the moment is very news based, we are going to try to balance that up with a few more sort of analytical kind of videos like this one. And if you really like us, smash those bells. Again, as I say in a lot of my videos, we are trying to bring you more factual based content instead of rumour and speculation. But as always, for now, take care.